I just built a terrarium for under $50. Let's talk about that. Hey guys, it's Joe here from Hermit Garden, coming at you with another video. And in this video, what I wanted to talk about was how you can actually put together a terrarium of your own for relatively low cost. So recently I wanted to build another terrarium of my own, and this time I wanted to see what's a reasonable price range you can expect to have if you're just building a regular terrarium. You're not looking for anything super fancy, but at the same time you aren't trying to do a $0 terrarium. So I wanted to see what kind of terrarium you could get with a budget of just $50. What I'm going to show you are a few clips that I recorded a few months ago of me putting together this terrarium, and I'm going to walk you through each individual step that I did to build that terrarium and how much each of those steps cost. So let's roll the clips. Hey guys, we just came across some moss growing on the side of the road here. I think this moss will do well in a terrarium because I can see it's kind of growing in the dirt here. So we're just going to go ahead and pick some up. So just got a little fingerful here, and just going to put it in this bag. So I just found this fern on the side of the path here and decided to dig it up and see how well it turns out in the terrarium. So we've got our materials together and we're pretty much ready to put our terrarium together. So let's go through each component here. So we have our plastic bin. This is where the terrarium is going to go into. We've got our potting mix here. That's going to be the substrate. I got this from Home Depot. It's about $7. We got our window screen mesh. This was about $7 or so, also from Home Depot. Scissors, going to use these to cut open the bags. And we got our rocks here and some plants. This is Joe from the future here. So I'm going to explain what's kind of going on here. So the first thing I'm doing is measuring out the separation layer. So I'm cutting out a piece right now, and the size should roughly be a little bit larger than the bottom of the container. So that's why I put the bin on top, so I can get a rough measure of the size that I'm trying to cut. Okay, so I'm just doing a quick fit check, make sure it's good. Now I'm adding in the drainage layer material. So I'm just dumping all those pieces of gravel that I collected, and they'll serve as the drainage layer. And the purpose of the drainage layer is to keep water from sitting around in the substrate and suffocating your plants. Alright, so now I'm putting in the separation material. Looks like I'm kind of struggling to do that, but eventually I get it in there. Alright, so now I'm adding in the potting mix. So it's kind of a heavy bag, it was about like 10 pounds, so kind of struggling with that too, but eventually got some dirt in, adding it on top of the separation material. And because of the window screen mesh, the hole sizes are so small, the potting mix doesn't actually fall into the drainage layer, which would defeat the purpose of having a drainage layer in the first place. Okay, so I dump it all in a pile and then kind of spread it out evenly. So I would add about an inch in there, and now I'm putting in the rocks. So these are kind of just decorations. They're not really serving any purpose except for like that one piece of moss that I'm going to put on top of that. And the reason I'm using a rock as the substrate for moss is to replicate where I found it, which was on that concrete block. Okay, so now I'm putting in the fern here. Looks like it kind of got roughed up in transit, but we'll see how that goes in a bit. So I'm just digging a little hole in there and putting some dirt on top to cover it up. Okay, so now I'm putting the pieces of moss into the terrarium. So that one was on the concrete block that I found earlier. So putting it onto another rock to replicate its natural environment as close as possible. That one I found in the dirt, so I'm going to put it directly onto the potting mix. And the other one I found on the path, so I kind of put it in between the dirt and the rock to see what would happen. So the first thing we're going to add to the budget is that bin that I use. So I use a 30-quart plastic bin. I think it's Rubbermaid. That's what it says on the side of the box anyways. I got that one for about $14 from Fred Meyer's, one of my local department stores. The second piece that I bought for the terrarium is that window screen mesh. I got that from Home Depot for $7. I also got a decent sized bag of potting mix, and that was about $7, also from Home Depot. And that's pretty much it in terms of the expenses for the terrarium. Everything else I got from my local hiking trail. So I went out there, gathered some rocks, gathered some plants, and just threw them into my terrarium. And that was pretty much it. So in total, this terrarium only cost me $28 for a decent sized terrarium, and it's one that I can use to propagate moss to grow larger plants like little ferns. And it didn't really cost me all that much to do it. So I'm hoping that inspires you to make a terrarium of your own. You don't have to worry too much about the budget. There's ways you can do it for a very low price, even for free if you wanted to, and you can get a pretty good terrarium without having to break your wallet. Now let's check in on how that terrarium is doing right now, about 5 months later. So here's how my terrarium is looking right now. I put it on this mat right here so you guys can get a better view here. So got a little condensation in there. I'm gonna open it up, see how it's doing. So looks like the plants are doing fine. Still looking green. One thing I did notice is that some fungus gnats kind of infested the terrarium. There were some fungus gnats that were already kind of floating around in my house. But other than that, most of the moss in here looks fine. The fern's doing good and looks green. So put the moss right there. There's that other piece of moss. Not sure how that one's doing, but looks like it's doing all right. And that other piece of moss that I found on that block of concrete, that one's doing fine. I think it's rooted itself to the rock, actually. Yeah, so looks like it's doing fine, doing pretty good so far. So that's it. That's all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that inspires you to make a terrarium of your own. If you do, feel free to let me know about it, how it goes for you, and make sure to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it and it helped you out. And if you're really interested in learning more, I do have a blog post about this on my website, hermitgarden.com. So just Google Hermit Garden, how to build a terrarium, and you'll find it there. Okay, thanks. See you in the next video.